Can you hear me? Anybody? Hopefully everyone can hear me. There's no mouse. You get no mouse.
Is there volume?
There's volume. I think everyone can hear me. It's saying that they can hear me. Okay. So we're going over easements and subdivisions and things this morning. This is Carol McKenna. She's going to help us out. She's got a lot of years of experience doing this. So if you've got any crazy questions about easements and covenants and things, you can ask away. I know that David here in particular had a crazy question about that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So go ahead, take it away.
He's muted.
I know. He'll be all right.
Oh, okay, everybody. I am Carol McKenna, as some of you may already know. I've had probably 30 years of experience in the real estate industry, probably more. My daughter is going, no, really. Anyway, we are talking about surveys and what to look for in the event of encroachments, easements, sheds that are sitting on an easement that may or may not be affixed on a foundation. If they're not affixed to a foundation, it is not a title issue. However, whoever's easement that is may require that you move your shed. So these are things to look out for. Fences that may or may not encroach onto a neighbor's property, or your neighbor's fence may encroach onto your property. This is a boundary survey that was done back in 2020. This is vacant land. There is no home on it. There is a concrete structure on it, but no home. So up at the top of this, you see the wetlands. So this is on the water. There are, I wish I could hear somebody. There are various setback lines. There's a reserved drain field on here. This is the property line over here. But there is a fence here. Now, whose fence is it? That remains to be seen. And then there's another drain field over here. There's trees. And so on. There's really no issues with this one, except to the extent that this fence, we believe, belongs to the next door neighbor and kind of blocks access to the water. There's a pier over here to, dock your boat. But there's nothing terribly interesting on this survey.
I do have the wetlands delineation for that. You cannot unmute him.
Thank you. Next, where do we go next?
Did you want the
Bedford survey?
Okay.
Here we go. This is a survey of a property in Portsmouth. I am trying to get used to using this thing.
What do you want?
I want to scroll down a little bit. That's up.
Oh, that's it.
Okay. All righty. As you see here, there is nothing that shows any setback lines. There is a utility pedestal just outside the property line. Lot 13 shows that the one-story building belonging to lot 14 is encroaching. This can be handled in a few ways. You could do an easement agreement where the people on lot 14 obtain the right to wash down their shed, access their shed from that side to, I don't know, replace a window or something like that. Boundary line agreement is also a possibility. Removal of the shed or building is a possibility, or vacating the property line and redoing it so that that shed is or building is no longer on lot 13 side. So those are the three ways you can do that. not much else interesting on this particular plat. If you look at the first page of subdivision plats, it will show you easements and restrictions. These boundary line plats really just show you what flood zone you're in, what the dimensions of the property are. It doesn't show you much else. So there's that. So now we're going to move on to HOA,
You want it to be at the top?
more or less, yeah.
There you go. Oh, you gotta,
I got it.
hang on. Oh, David.
Okay, so I want to be on the next page.
Okay. And this goes back to our survey for lot 23, which is in Sleepy Point Way out in Suffolk.
And this is the declaration of covenants and restrictions for that subdivision, amended. And there are lots of things that I swear, I can't do anything on this computer. You're gonna have to stand next to me and scroll.
Okay, that's fine.
So if you'll notice, it's in the now therefore paragraph, the Property Owners Association says that the covenants and restrictions run with the title to the said land. This means they're permanent unless they are, again, amended. So anything that's here is part of what your buyer is agreeing to. So no building site shall consist of less than one lot.
Which means you could combine 2 lots?
You can combine one lot plus part or all of any adjoining lot or lots, but that's subject to the approval of the Property Owners Association. You've got no less than 2,500 square feet of floor space in a living area, or less than 3,000 in case of a 1.5 or 2-story building.
Oh, sorry. I'm kidding.
Okay, so basically there are a lot of things that you can and cannot do. The buildings that are on the property must be used for the purpose intended. Oh, I'm doing well.
You're doing great.
Okay, so no structure can be built until it has been first approved by the Property Association. There are easements for telephone, electric, cable, television, and utility lines. Those are permanent and under the control of the association. You can't have a trailer, a tent, or a shack, or a barn. You can't use it for purposes of livestock raising. You may be able to have a chicken or two.
No.
No animals, livestock, or fowl of any kind shall be raised, bred, or kept on any site, but dogs, cats, and other household pets may be kept, provided they're not kept,
So
bred,
no chickens.
or maintained. So no chickens. Sorry. Can't carry on any noxious or offensive activities. I'm sorry, guys, you may not put a meth lab on your property.
No hookers.
I'm not sure about that. Landscaping is again under the control of the association. It must be approved. No satellite dishes. Well, you can have satellite dishes, but no antenna.
I can't have a big CB tower in my yard.
Sewage disposal shall be in septic tanks of a size and standard approved by the proper governmental health or sanitation authorities. That
Okay.
means that this is not on a public well or sanitation.
Right. So this particular property, we ran into an issue with this. Okay, because these lots were divided prior to, and we have something in the chat. These lots were divided prior to, the new, and we went over this last class with septics, these were divided prior to the new laws that they came out with for septics in 2019, where they're starting to require alternate septics.
Mhm.
So these lots are technically not big enough to accommodate traditional systems anymore, and they are waterfront lots. So they are restricted to wetlands, which means that my people, in order to build the house in the size that this HOA is requiring, ended up having to purchase a variance in order to fit a septic tank and stuff. So like, it was a really, really, really fun time to figure all of these things out, because now we're talking about doing fitting, because we had to read this entire package in order to figure this out. We had to get all of this done. And as you see, we have this space here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse moving, but this drain field, this primary drain field done, right? And we have a reserve drain field. And I have another, and I can pull it up. I have another one done. And you see up here in the top where this fence is actually the neighbor's fence that's encroaching on the land, because that's part of their driveway, is on this lot. We had to have that done as well. And then we had to have the septic design done to figure out where the house could fit, to figure out if the variance could be purchased, to figure out if they could build into the landward setback for the wetlands.
Okay, from a title standpoint, we care about these private septic systems because there must be an inspection, of course, before the property can be conveyed. And additionally, same with the well, if there is a well.
And the other thing that we had to try to discover is, you'll see on the neighbor's side right here, there's a pier. That's the neighbor's pier. And luckily there's none marked out, but if there was one, they would have drawn it on this side over here. Part of the thing that we had to have done was they had to mark any irrigation wells on the neighbor's side, because you can't put a septic within 100 feet of an existing well. So neighbors like to put irrigation wells up against lot lines so that no one else can build next door to them.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Okay.
Two fingers.
So you have private sewage, and presumably there are wells,
or
is it public water?
It is private water, or it is city water, irrigation wells, and sewage.
Okay, so
Or septic.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So obviously the HOA is not responsible for maintaining each owner's septic system. They're responsible for maintaining their own. And that's something that they should be aware of. Additionally, if there were a well, same thing, well has to be in proper working order and have, good water. But we, as title agents, have to see the inspections were done, and of course pay for any invoices that are due. Basically, our job is to get all the paperwork together, all the invoices together, so that everybody has paid what they are supposed to pay, and that's what we endeavor to do. Now this says the lot owners must rough landscape their own lot within 90 days and submit it for approval. Okay, they have to maintain their own grass. Nobody's going to cut their grass for them unless they hire somebody. Any plans for additional structures have to be submitted to the HOA or POA. No drying laundry outdoors. That's a shame because it really smells really nice when you dry it outdoors. The garbage cans have to be screened from view at all times. No personal property or fixtures can be outside in public view for more than 24 hours.
So
Yeah. Recreational vehicles, trailers, water park, and so on must be parked on a paved driveway. Make it a big driveway. Holiday lights and decorations shall not be displayed for more than 30 days prior to or after the specific holiday for which they were designed. I would be in so much trouble there. Binding on all parties. So be aware. These are the definitions of living units, lots, owners, occupants. There may be restrictions on, these are the bylaws, I believe. Yeah, these are the bylaws. Which from a title standpoint, we don't really care, except to the extent that there are dues and assessments. Our job as title agents is to collect that information from the listing or selling agent. If we're representing the buyer, we need the selling agent to cooperate in obtaining the financial disclosures, amounts due, when they're due, how often they're due, and what the balance is at the time of closing. There are lots of things in these bylaws that I personally don't care about. So there's an environmental preservation board because these are, there's wetlands.
Well, it's wetlands and it's also on, which river is it? It's one of the tributaries to the Chesapeake Bay.
Ah.
So it's got Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act.
Okay, so I assume that you all heard that it is under the auspices of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. Hey, owners and members shall have the right to enjoy the common areas.
I think it's got a tennis court.
You can use the tennis court. You have my permission. Maintenance assessments. These are special assessments to improve or create things like tennis courts, clubhouses, anything that goes basically in the common areas. And you have to pay those. And sometimes, I mean, you know, if it's like a condo, and which it's not, but if it were a condo, there would be special assessments for re-roofing and maintaining sidewalks and parking areas.
The big one down at Rudy's Inlet where all of the EFS siding went bad. And
there you go.
Everybody $20,000.
Yep, there you go. So there is a uniform rate for each living unit. Maximum manual assessment, $1,200 per lot, subject to change. With notice. Did you know that your homeowners association can foreclose on your property if you fail to make your payments? Yes, ma'am.
How much do you have to owe?
Hard to say because it differs from homeowners association to homeowners association. But I would imagine that if you don't pay for 6 months to a year, they're going to be after you. They will be making attempts to collect. Now, there is an exception to that in that the HOA dues and assessments are subordinated to your first and second mortgages. However, if you have a third mortgage, which I would hope not, however, that would not, HOA would not be subordinate to that. So basically what it means is, yes, they can foreclose on you if you fail to make your payments in a timely manner. But they have to notify your first and or second mortgage lien holders, who can then decide that you have defaulted under the terms of your deed of trust or mortgage and foreclose on you. So, beware.
I have a strange question.
Mhm.
So Jordan
Mhm.
has, I think, a like shared maintenance agreement that runs with like, say, her house. So she's got like a little road in front of her house
It's private.
and it's private.
Yep.
So what if no one holds up their end of the bargain? What can Jordan do about it?
Is there a property owners association?
I don't know.
If
No,
there
there's not. It's all private.
is here, but
We can't hear Jordan though.
we can't hear anybody.
Hang on.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We still can't hear Jordan.
Hello, hello.
We hear Jordan.
I haven't been able to hear anybody.
No, we can't hear anybody.
Do you guys have your volume up?
Everyone else hears Jordan, but we don't hear Jordan. Hang on. I'm gonna go figure out why we can't hear. Hang on.
Sorry, Jordan. I'm not so good at reading lips. Could try again if you'd like.
She can put her question in the chat and you can pull it up.
She did. She did.
Put her question in the chat.
I think so. Let's see if
Click
she did.
chat.
Weird shit in real estate. Can you see who messages? Okay, turn up your volume. It's up. No HOA, all private.
So they can't hear you?
Jordan, can you hear me? Yes. No,
Okay, but we
maybe.
can't hear Jordan?
We can't hear Jordan. We can hear nobody.
You can hear everybody else, but can't hear Jordan? Or is it, you hear anyone else on there?
I'm not sure that Jordan can hear me.
Test,
She
test,
can hear
test.
you. She
Yeah,
said
okay,
yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. From our end, it's showing that she's not muted or anything.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I mean, this shows muted.
No, Jordan's
That's
not
them,
muted.
but she's not.
Okay,
Yeah. See the little red, that's them, but she doesn't have one by her.
I just unmuted myself and spoke and y'all didn't hear me.
They didn't hear you either?
I just unmuted myself and spoke and you all, and it says.
That's
Yeah,
Christy.
that's Christy. Oh, okay, I thought you were saying you did it. I was like,
No,
oh dear, we
no,
have
no.
more than one problem.
Stand by, everyone.
Stand by
Where
for-
did my water go?
They had no trouble hearing us, but thank you, Thompson.
Jordan, try to speak again.
Hello, hello, hello.
Here we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I just didn't select the right speaker.
All right.
Thank you for your patience, guys.
Sorry about that. Okay, so you have,
All right, Jordan. So Jordan has a shared maintenance agreement, so she's gonna ask her question. Well, ask my question.
Jordan, go ahead and ask your question.
So Chrissy's question is basically so I've got a shared maintenance road in front of my house. It's all private. It's shared between 3 houses. And it's just the 3 houses. If the other 2 houses on my street don't hold up their end of the bargain, if they don't want to do any maintenance, if they don't want to do anything, what can I then do to have the maintenance on that road still done legally, even if they're
Okay,
not
so
doing anything?
this is what you would want to do, is to consult with an attorney and potentially file suit against those 2 neighbors, which I probably wouldn't want to live there after that. But there's not a lot of, I mean, you could have an attorney send a letter to them outlining their obligations. Whether they will comply or not is something else again. In the meantime, you know, your little road is getting more and more run down. I would not suggest that you get out in the middle of the night and dig potholes on their on the drive in front of their driveways. So, but apart from that, basically your remedy is to go to an attorney.
Yeah, that's
I really hate to say it.
Luckily, one of them is my in-laws, so I don't have to really worry about that.
There you go. That's what I would do. I think that, the friendliest way to start would be to, if you haven't spoken to them yet, I don't know if you have or not. Have you spoken with them about this?
Hypothetical
There's,
question.
it's just a hypothetical. Yeah. No,
Okay, I mean, just
everything is good here.
It was more a curiosity
Yeah.
question, like what could you do?
I mean, you could approach them, have a little meeting and say, hey, this road is kind of getting sketchy here and we're all supposed to participate in keeping it up. You guys on board?
I just didn't know, like, if I ended up having to pay for the road, like, I can't put a lien against them.
Well, you might be able to, but you'd have to consult an attorney to find out. I mean, you probably could. They are responsible. It's in the records. It's in the land records. It runs with the land, and every owner has to pay their portion. So yeah, I mean, the problem is, of course, that you're going to have a potential lawsuit and, potential costs, which I'm glad it's your in-laws.
Here's another question though regarding easements. So on my little 3-house street, the middle house that is not mine or my in-laws house, because we've got wetlands behind us,
Mhm.
the only way to get 3 houses on this street was to route the septic drain field from my in-laws house into the yard of the middle house. So they've got an easement in their backyard for my in-laws drain field and a plot of land behind the current drain field for if they ever need to do a new drain field.
Okay.
And so then the question with that is that was not found when the middle house sold on title. Whose fault is that? Is it the original people who put in the septic system? Is it like it wasn't found when my in-laws bought their house, like that their septic system didn't go into their yard? It wasn't found when the middle house sold and bought a new one, and
It wasn't recorded in the land records. It wouldn't have come up in the land records if it wasn't recorded.
it was recorded. It just wasn't recorded in the right spot. So who's responsible?
Ah. At that point, it would be the person who, did the court make the error in the recording? Or was it recorded in the wrong jurisdiction?
I'm
How
not
was it
sure.
recorded? Okay, so if it's recorded in the wrong spot or under the wrong name, that is not the title company's or the abstractor's responsibility. They do search names, like names, etc., but they wouldn't search another property, say, in order to find that. It would be up to the seller of that center property to disclose it to the buyer.
Even if they didn't know, because it
Well,
wasn't
if
told to
they
them
didn't
either.
know, then they should have been told by the original owner. So
They are the original owner. It was built by a builder for them.
then it's the builder. The builder mucked it up.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you, is that the builder mucked it up. So your recourse would be against the builder, but I think that the recourse would only extend to the original owner.
Okay.
In other words, if they sell it to somebody else, that somebody else may not have recourse against the builder. Their recourse would be against the seller for not disclosing it. Then the seller would go back to the builder for not disclosing it. It would get very messy.
Okay. And is there any recourse, because it was recorded and it just wasn't done properly, where that easement would be null and void?
The easement would not be null and void, but it should be re-recorded to
Yeah.
correct where it was recorded. The other thing is that you could potentially file a title claim under the owner's policy. But I don't know that it would be covered.
Like the middle house could, or my in-laws house could?
The middle house could.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's on the middle house's property.
But technically both.
No, because her in-laws have owned the house and they owned it without that piece extending into the middle part. So that wasn't part of their owner's policy. Their owner's policy would have been before that, so they would not be able to go against the owner's policy. You see what I mean?
Even
So-
though they're the second owners and the first owners didn't know where their drain field was. So they couldn't tell us where the
Nobody
drain
seems to
field
know
was.
anything about this drain field, do they?
No, no one knew.
So your in-laws now own the house or they don't own the house?
They do.
They do it, and they're the second owner? Or,
Yes.
or we're pretending that they're the second owner?
They are.
They,
Okay,
they
they're
are the second owner.
Who did the easement? Your in-laws or the first owners?
The builder.
The builder did the easement. Were your in-laws notified? Who hired the builder? Your in-laws?
Mm-mm, the first owner, or it was
First owner.
the builder actually had this whole lot and he built all three houses.
Okay,
And then the builder lived in one.
okay, so the builder's on the hook.
Okay.
Free and clear, builder's on the hook. He built three
Got it.
houses, he's on the hook. But again, consult with an attorney because, I'm not. Just my uninformed opinion.
That's what I figured, but it's just one of those weird things where we
Yes.
even, when my in-laws bought the house, we had the septic company come out to do the septic inspection and they're like, I think your drain field's over here, but the way that this map is reading, I don't know. I can't see where the drain field actually is, but we think it's back here. It was not back there.
No,
It was over
Just
there.
kept
it was many feet
going.
away.
Turned left.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's pretty bad. Anyway,
Sorry. I like to ask the weird questions.
okay.
If you guys have
Well,
any
and
more weird
my
Here.
street always has something weird coming up.
well, I mean, that's what she's here for.
Yep.
She's seen a lot.
Yep. I have seen a lot. Speaking of which, I had an interesting closing in which I underwrote the title. It was a property that was being purchased from foreclosure. Don't know if any of you do that, but when you do, be extremely careful because our title examiner on her cover page put no open deeds of trust. So we got we got a letter from an attorney saying, hey, we foreclosed on this. No, we are representing the seller of this property, who is a bank. And the foreclosure was held subject to a prior deed of trust. What this means is that, of course, that deed of trust was not paid off. And the foreclosing attorneys used to publish whether or not they were foreclosing subject to any liens. They don't do that anymore. They say, oh, hey, buyer, go get a title search. Well, the buyer went and got a title search. It was undisclosed to us. We closed, and now we have an attorney after us because that deed of trust was not paid off. So when you're looking at foreclosed properties, make sure that your buyer knows everything there is to know. Make sure that they do get a title search. And, this was pretty much a special exception because what happened was that there was a deed of trust on the property. It was released. And then when they were foreclosing on the second, they did a certificate of rescission, which means that they rescinded the release of the deed of trust, placing the deed of trust back in its proper lien position, which was prior. So that is a major issue, major title claim. However, maybe this will make a difference. The seller of the property, the bank, signed several documents that stated that there were no existing liens on the property.
You can't have it both ways.
Yep. So their lawyer who does know that there's an existing lien on the property, allowed them to sign documents that said there was no existing liens on the property. Am I off the hook? I don't know. Guess what? I'm going to be consulting an attorney. So you really have to be on top of things. Now, I can go against the title examiner's E&O. I can file my own E&O. The owner of the property can file under their loan policy, which becomes an owner's policy once they are the vested owner of the property. So that would be a title claim against us, which we would prefer not to have. Anyway, interesting things happen in our world. The real estate world is a very strange place. Anyway, I digress, as always, because that's what I do. So the most important thing about HOAs is that you be familiar with the restrictions, covenants, and easements that are included in this bunch of documents. There are many things. I have an HOA where there is an easement for flyaway golf balls. So if the golf balls break your windows, oh well, replace it yourself. We have an easement to come through your window. Thank you very much. So yeah, there's a lot of things in the older documents. There are many things that restrict ethnic groups from living in property. Those are no longer legal, but they still exist in the documents. You can have a Mexican maid, or maintenance man, but he cannot live in your property. And that is older than I can tell you. All of that has been federally mandated to be illegal. So just keep that in mind when you run across those things.
I ran across one in Newport News that the restriction was that if they hear you using foul language, and they could hear it outside of your unit, even if you were using it inside of your unit, they could fine you.
That's fun and interesting.
If they saw you walking a dog and could not visibly see bags with you, they could fine you.
Wow.
You had to be holding the bag in your hand. I was like, that's a little intense.
That is a little intense, but you know, I believe in picking up dog poop.
Yeah, but I mean, oh my God.
Anyway, I heard that David had a particular question that he wanted
David
to ask.
had to go,
Ah,
but David had one. I believe it was, Ocean Lakes that he brought up a few weeks ago. That I believe it was Ocean Lakes where they have 0 lot lines, right? So one side of the house has a yard and the other side of the house butts up to the lot line, right? Kind of like, my old, like where, what is that neighborhood? Over off of Campion,
mhm.
Green Run, right? We're all familiar with that, yes? Those neighborhoods where the house is on the lot line, so like your siding is in your neighbor's house. Well, this particular neighborhood, this builder put all of, I mean, obviously Ocean Lakes has been there forever, so you know, it's been there for 30+ years. This particular builder put all of the pads for the air condenser outside on the one side of the house that is on the 0 lot line. So they're all technically in the neighbor's side yard, but there's no easement.
And nobody has protested thus far.
No.
So
So
So the options are,
and it's in an HOA. So,
yep, so the options are to approach the HOA and say, hey, by the way, it appears that,
is it an HOA? That was the question. Is it an HOA issue? Or is it a hey neighbor issue? Because it's all governed by the HOA.
yeah, it's,
And you have to get, in that particular HOA, I believe that you had to get permission to, it was something weird, like you had to get permission to, it had I don't know if anybody else remembers exactly the wording, but it was something about like they had to get permission to even move the HVAC to the, like, even if you wanted to move the HVAC to your own
Mhm.
yard, you had to get permission to move the HVAC from the HOA.
right.
So,
So, basically, I would say that the initial step would be to get with the HOA and say, hey, it looks like everybody's HVAC unit is on their next door neighbor's property. Why is that? And is there anything that needs to be done about it? And can my neighbor prevent me from repairing my HVAC unit because there's no easements allowing me onto their property? That's the way I would start. It might then devolve to, some kind of lawsuit. My personal opinion is to let sleeping dogs lie. No one has protested thus far. Let the dogs sleep. Don't wake those howlers. I'm telling you. That, we always recommend that people get surveys, even in Green Run, where the houses have been forever, to determine if there are easements, and so on, or encroachments. But in this particular case, I'd kind of question that. So any questions for me?
somebody was asking what an alive trust was.
An alive trust. Oh, I think that is it's a trust agreement that lasts for as long as the person is alive. Once they pass away, there should be another trust already in place that governs what happens when they die. So it's a living trust. It's a living trust. And it lasts as long as you're alive. So you should have one that then takes effect once you pass. Obviously, you can't do it after you pass. You really have to do it before you pass. Anything else?
I'm sure somebody has a question.
Does anybody want to hear about anything else? Such as what constitutes an easement and what constitutes an encroachment and so on and so forth.
I do have a question. So when we were talking about lot 23 and that driveway, because that lot had been vacant for so long. And that driveway had been put in, God only knows how long ago, and it was onto their property. However, they were okay with leaving the driveway where it was because and hopefully everyone can hear me, but they were okay. They were gonna need the fence that went around the driveway moved. And I know that you can, God knows what I'm at a loss for words. If you, like, when you build something on somebody's land and they know about it, and then you can kind of, it's there.
Adverse possession type.
Correct.
Yep.
There we go. Sorry, I just was at a loss for words. So it had been there for a very, very long time. However, my people were buying it. They were gonna need the fence moved in order to build this house. But if these other people had taken adverse possession via the driveway, can they make them move the driveway? Cause they're the new owner?
Well, basically, adverse possession doesn't really work in Virginia.
Okay, fair enough.
There are, it's a very long time that it has to be there in order for you to
And the
have achieved,
house-
and it has to be open and notorious use of the driveway.
I mean, it's a driveway. They're using the driveway. The house was built in 1982.
30 years. They may have,
30
have,
years, that's 40 years.
I can't count.
That's 40 years ago. I'm 40.
Okay, so they may have grounds for saying that, hey, we own this now because of adverse possession. Most people don't know that they can take property by adverse possession.
Okay.
Your average Joe does not know that they can take property by adverse possession. So, the best approach, of course, is to approach the neighbors and say, hey, we need to take down your fence in order to put up our house.
Right.
Would you be willing? And usually, there's either a boundary line adjustment agreement
Uh-huh.
whereby they sell the property that the driveway is on
Right.
to the neighbor,
Uh-huh.
or an easement agreement.
Right. But what if
Um,
that can't happen? And everybody lawyers up.
Then it's up to the lawyers to make the determination as to what is going to happen and how they're going to fix it.
Mm.
That's just the way it goes.
They can't just light their fence on fire.
No, but about an easement agreement would generally state that should the driveway fall into disrepair, the next door neighbor would agree to remove it.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Chances are good that the driveway is not going to fall into disrepair.
Excellent neighborhood.
So it's kind of a moot point, but hey, Okay, on to easements. You know that when a subdivision is built, there are many easements for utilities, telephone, electric, cable, you name it. Each of these companies has an easement agreement, and you can't build on the easement. So however wide or narrow that easement is, you have to maintain like the grass, etc., landscaping on the easement, but you don't really, you kind of own it, but you don't, if you know what I mean. The companies can come in and replace underground wires and dig up the yard and so on, and they're supposed to put it back in a like condition, and we all know how that works. So all of those easements are done when the subdivision takes place, when it takes place. Sidewalks are also another easement. A sidewalk is an easement over your driveway. You should not park on sidewalks or over sidewalks because they're not yours to park on. Park on the street. Let the pedestrians have their sidewalks, please. And you
I feel like
have,
this might be a passionate thing that you hate.
I do, because I lived in Amberley Forest and everybody parked on the sidewalk, and I was walking my dogs and I had to run into the street in order to get around the cars. So yeah, it's much, yeah, don't be rude. Okay. Other easements. You could have an egress easement. This is the way that you get into the property. If you don't have an ingress egress easement and there is no public road that you're sitting on so that you can put a driveway in, you're landlocked. You can't access your own property. So there's a couple of different ways to cure that as well. You can enter into an easement agreement with all of your neighbors who use the same driveway, if there are any. Or you can file suit to say, hey, there has been habitual use of this driveway by this property in the back, and we need a prescriptive easement. Everybody talks about prescriptive easements and is like, well, but isn't it a prescriptive easement? It's not a prescriptive easement until the court says it's a prescriptive easement. And so you can't access the property until you have some kind of ingress egress easement. If you only have an ingress easement, you can go in, but you can't come out. If you can only come out, you need an ingress easement to go in. So yeah, it's got to be an ingress egress easement or some other agreement that is beneficial to all the parties. Private roads are also a problem because most roads are public. So you have a property that's sitting on Edwin Drive and it's a private road, which it's not, but we're going to pretend. There should be, if it's not in an HOA, there must be a private road maintenance agreement recorded in the land records.
We see it a lot in North Carolina. We see a lot of private maintenance agreements because there are a lot of private roads in North Carolina.
And they like them. They like to keep them private.
Because the counties do not have the money to maintain them.
Well, this is something that came up a lot in the foreclosure world back in the day, where, and it wasn't that far back, Christine, but what was happening was that families were subdividing their properties and creating, you know, a private road, a dirt road to get into the other property. But there were no easements of record. So if you foreclosed on the property, that's great. But then you're met at the gate by the family members with their guns going, you don't have access to this property. I only gave my son access to this property, or I only gave my daughter access. So what are we? We're landlocked. We can't do anything until the court says you have a prescriptive easement.
How long did it take to get one?
It's usually only a couple of months. I mean, it depends on how hard they want to fight it. And, you know, most of the time, people don't want to spend a lot of money, time and money, you know, defending their son's property,
Defending their dirt road?
defending their dirt road. So, other easements may be that companies such as, what is the there have been lawsuits pending, something mountain, something. They had easements to go over a lot of dirt driveways in order to maintain their power or whatever utility they were with. It was power or water.
Mountain?
Yeah, something mountain. I can't remember it, but anyway, lots of lawsuits going on because of course the trucks tore up the road. So was it up to the trucking companies to maintain the road? Was it part of the yes, it was private roads, and they had the easement to go over it. But did the easement say, hey, you can use it, but you have to maintain it? No, it did not. So, and of course, there was a presumably private road maintenance agreement whereby the owners that lived on the road had to maintain the road, but the trucking company did not. So
I mean, that's
these
kind
are
of the same thing as like if I ask Home Depot to deliver something to my house and I ask the man with the forklift to drive it up my driveway and his forklift damages my driveway, that's on me for asking him to drive up my driveway.
there you go. There you go. So these are the kinds of things that you run into and that can create a nightmare on title because they do take time to resolve. The other interesting properties are heirship properties. These are properties that have passed down through families. And many times people seem to believe that because they live in the property that all of the heirs own, they don't, when they sell their house, they don't have to include the rest of the people that own the house, and the rest of the people that own the house should not get any proceeds. So when they file their list of heirs with the court, they only put themselves in as an heir. Thank you. So what do? You know, as a title company I have to put in requirements that all heirs sign the deed. Okay, well, that kind of opens up the discussion, who's an heir? We look at the land records, we look at probate. Probate says that, PJ is the only heir. Well, PJ hit a few people and said, oh, no, there were no other children. But we have to check things like death records, obituaries, and so on. So here's PJ representing that she is the only person who owns the property, and she's got 3 or 4 brothers and sisters,
And some half siblings.
and
Yeah,
so
I
on.
know.
Yeah. So so we get the obituary, and we're going, hey, PJ, it looks like you have brothers and sisters. How many of them are living? Well, she comes clean and says, okay, yeah, I've got, Robert, he's deceased. Well, does Robert have children? Yeah, Robert has 3 children. Okay, well, the 3 children are now heirs, and they have a percentage interest in the property. Or was Robert married? If Robert was married, then his wife gets 2/3, and the children get, no, backwards. Wife gets 1/3, children get 2/3. Or it could be, depends on whether he was still married or not. She may get all of the property. Then there's, the other ones who are married or not. We don't care about the spouses in particular, because only the heir gets the money. Sorry, guys, if you're a husband or a wife, you're out of luck. So it is quite interesting. We did have a closing at one point in time where there were many, many heirs, and I was told that this person was an heir. He was the stepson of this person. I mean, I was doing family trees, and I'm not really good at that. That is not what I want to do with my life. I think PJ might really enjoy that, but as for me, no, thank you. And so I was like, well, this guy appears to be the son of the heir, but not his wife, so he is entitled to a percentage of this property. Oh, no, he's not his son. Well, but yeah, he is. And I had this was Elm Street, which
It's never closed.
Chrissy was in on. They wanted to close so badly, and the buyer's agent,
No, I was the buyer's agent.
I'm sorry, the seller's agent kept telling us that it was up to the seller to clear title. Well, no, it's up to this seller to tell us the truth so that we can get to the bottom of this. And it's up to the listing agent to assist in getting that truth out of the clients.
And they
I-
kept trying to, nobody would designate an heir for signing. So by the time we were done with it, and I think I still have a copy of it. By the time we were done with it, I had to just write at all heirs on the top of it. And they were mailing it back and forth between heirs. And there was like 37 signatures on this freaking contract.
Right, but there was one missing
And there was one missing.
because of this guy that they could not find. And he was an heir, but they couldn't find him. So I finally, after being berated partially by the listing agent several times, said, I am no longer involved in this transaction.
She was horrible.
It looks like you will probably have to file a quiet title action or some other form of lawsuit in order to obtain clear title to the property.
They were literally, it was
It was,
a $50,000 deal, and these people were not willing to to send anybody as their one representative. They all wanted to sign it and nobody would sign it electronically. They're mailing this thing back and forth. They were gonna end up with like $3 each.
Yeah, it was quite a mess. And again, it
I
still to
mean-
this day has not closed.
No,
Um,
no, it never closed. It's sitting there rotting.
So, you know, that's,
Just take my 50 grand and let me leave.
but when you're a real estate agent, you do get dragged into these things. And when it devolves into, you know, 30 or 40 heirs, you might want to rethink your obligation to your seller and or buyer, because it is,
Run away.
it is really, really difficult from a title standpoint, and it's difficult on a listing agent to drag the truth out of their clients. I mean, my very first one when I was quite a bit younger, had a property in Hampton, and I had, you know, all of the heirs that I knew about in the closing. And this young man walks in and I said, well, hi, how are you? Who are you? And, oh, this is my nephew. He's my deceased sister's son. But he doesn't get any of the property
That's not how that works.
because his aunt raised him in the house. Therefore, he shouldn't get anything. And I was like, how old are you? Well, he was 18. So he was an adult. He could make a decision. And he said, no, he didn't want any part of the property. So what do I have to do?
Get him to sign.
I have to get him to sign a disclaimer of interest in the property and get him to sign. So here's the deal with disclaimers of interest in property. The person disclaiming the property only disclaims for him or herself. The disclaimer does not affect her children. So if you have someone who has disclaimed property or an interest in property, that person's heirs have an interest in the property. And on that note, let's wrap it up. Any questions?
I have nothing. Nothing. Thanks for coming. All right, we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.